I always loved drawing, and when I went to university, it sure seemed like a whole lot more fun to go and spend half the time in a studio instead of always in an academic classroom. But it was really at art school that I realized this is definitely what I want to do for a profession. It's one of those professions that chooses you, though. It's really not an option to not do it. A sort of central theme of my practice for quite a long time now has been the intersection of the man-made and the natural worlds. And I think here in British Columbia, we live in the middle of this vast, overwhelming wilderness. And so I kind of like where you see the roads going through, the power lines, like with the various series I've done with the Port Mann Bridge, in looking at the coyotes. These are creatures of the interface. That border kind of fascinates me, how we get along in the natural world that is we're so lucky to have here. The drafting film is just a great surface to work on. It's really slidey. Much of my method is I use an erasure as a positive. For instance, one of the techniques that I use, if you look at the drawings closely, you'll see that in some cases there's spatters and drips, and what I do is I mix like an acrylic gel medium with water in a spray bottle, and I spray that all over the drawing, and then in some places I let it drip, but I also blot it and that sort of stuff. And it's partly a fixative. It essentially is then holding the charcoal dust or the pastel dust between two layers of plastic, but it also gives texture. And when you then take your eraser or whatever, fingernails, socks, whatever I'm using, whatever weapons I've got in the studio, and swipe at it again, then you get these lines and textures inside that they're the wind and they're the sense of it, and they're making the work interesting when you're close up, which I think work should always be, but when you step back too, just making it more of a dynamic piece than just drawing the silhouette of a tree. When I began to start thinking about this particular body of work in an installation sense, where they could hang not on the wall as individual pieces one after another, but in the middle of the room. And then when I started cutting them into strips and they added movement, then it's like, well, why not sound too? And so that it'd be a total immersive experience. The piano music is Handel and Scarlatti, and Graham Vink is the pianist. And Graham, myself, and my husband went through a whole bunch of music, finding what expressed trees in winter. And I always love that sound of a piano in the next apartment, sort of thing. And that's what I was looking for in that part of the sound. And the other part of it is natural sounds mixed up with man-made sounds. So you can hear birds, you can hear a dog barking, but you can also hear traffic passing, and so that there's the combination, which again just comes back to my interest in the interface. When I went to get these recordings, it was amazing to me how much man-made sound there is in the Kelowna area, because visually you don't have to go very far to be entirely in the woods, but sound is something else, and our brains we can filter that out, and we're hearing the winds and the pines and the birds and all the lovely nature sounds. When you record it, it's different. Your brain doesn't filter out stuff out of a recording the same way. So it was quite an interesting experience to do that. But I want all those layers to be there. I mean, the piano music, there's the natural and man-made, and then the piano music is the art, right? So that's the kind of layer in between, the bridge between the automobile sounds and the bird sounds. It's what we do with the world around us. My work is not work that gives itself up all at once. You have to look at it for a while to understand it and for it to affect you. Basically that's the most important thing to me, that they find an emotional connection, a response to the work that means something to them.